Hello and welcome to the Social Problems course for Fall 2024. I'm Professor Dave, and today we're going to look at the syllabus. So from the home page of the course, you can see the syllabus by clicking on this button that says click here for Social Problems Syllabus. If you only want to see the course schedule, then you can click the button below that says Course Schedule and just have that one page of the syllabus that has all the deadlines on it. Okay. Let's take a look at the syllabus. So the syllabus comes up as a PDF file, and you can view it in the window that comes up, or you can also click on it and download the syllabus to your computer. First, we have the information about the course on the first page, the CRN number, if you need to reference the course, course description, the goals for the course overall. Then there's a section that talks about what you do basically day to day. And what you'll find is that the course is divided up into modules, and each module typically has these items in it. So communicating in the course, we want to use the email that's part of Canvas. That's the best way to do it because it's you're sure to get a hold of me that way, and also it blocks out viruses and other kinds of problems since it's contained within the course. How are you going to be graded? There's going to be 4 different kinds of graded items in the course. The quizzes, there will be a quiz for every lesson module, and the average of all of your quiz scores will account for 25% of your semester grade. When you take the quizzes, you can begin them anytime when the lesson begins, but you must finish them. You must make any attempts that you wish to make on the quizzes before the deadline for that quiz for that lesson. So the deadline for the quiz is usually the last day that we're working on a particular lesson. Some lessons we'll work on for 1 week. Some lessons we'll work on for a longer period, 2 weeks or what have you. So you can attempt the quiz as many times as you like during that window when we're studying the lesson before the deadline for that quiz. Now, once we reach the deadline for that quiz, then you'll no longer be able to attempt the quiz. And your grade for that quiz, for that particular lesson quiz, will be the average of all the attempts that you've made. So I wouldn't rush in there and just start guessing. First, read the lesson, study the lesson, and be prepared to make the highest grade possible on your first attempt. But let's say you do that, and you miss a couple of questions, and you make an 80 on that first attempt. Well, you can go back, review the parts of the lesson that you think you had difficulty with on the quiz, and then, after you've made that review and done some study, attempt the quiz again. So let's say the second time you take the quiz, you make 100. All right, now the average between the 80 and 100 is a 90. So your score for that lesson quiz would be a 90 if you stop there. But if the deadline hasn't passed yet, you're free to take the quiz again. Maybe you take it again and make another 100. Now your average is moved up to a 95. So you can see how that you'll be rewarded for going back and figuring out what you've missed so that you can get it right. That's really called learning, and that's what I want you to do. So that's the reason that I allow you unlimited attempts before the deadline. Well, what happens if you don't make an attempt by the deadline? Well, then your grade for that quiz, that lesson, will be a 0. So don't let that happen. That's why it's very important you print out the course schedule, go into your personal calendar, mark the deadlines, and do not wait until the deadline to attempt the quiz. Instead, begin the lesson when you're supposed to begin it according to the syllabus, and soon thereafter, start the lesson early in that window when we're studying that lesson, and make your first attempt early on as soon as you're ready to do so competently. All right, the discussion participation. Every lesson will have a discussion, and you're going to, if you want full credit for it, you're going to have to post at least 4 messages. So the first message that you're going to post can be a question about the lesson content. It could be a reflection about it, what you thought about it, about something you learned from it, something that surprised you, something you agreed with or disagreed with. It's okay to disagree with things, right? So that first post, and then, so you're going to make that first post early in your in the lesson, in the window when we're studying a particular lesson. You want to make that post as soon as you can, as soon as you've read the content of the lesson. Then go ahead and make your first post. That should be pretty easy, since you can certainly actually pose questions about it. Now, on a subsequent day, not the same day, let it rest, go back, study, prepare for the quiz and so on, but then come back on another day and see what other students have written. So you went in there, other students have gone in there and they've written things, they've posed questions, they've posted reflections or what have you. Go back and see what other students have written and then reply to some of those, you don't have to reply to everyone in the class, but reply to some of those that you find stimulating. Maybe there's a question you find interesting, you want to explore that. Maybe there's something that somebody was noticed in the lesson that was particularly interesting and you want to talk about that with others in the class. So do that, and you're going to do that at least 3 times during the lesson, okay? Because what I want to happen, it's not a short answer test question. Sometimes students get confused about that and they think, oh, I'm going to go in and answer this question as if I'm answering a short answer question on a test. No, that's not the point. You can certainly provide answers to questions and make sure that you have considered it and looked up answers and so on, but what we really want to accomplish is dialogue. I really want you to have a back and forth discussion with other students in the class about the content of the lesson. Talk about the things that you like. Talk about the things that you didn't understand very well. And by doing that, everyone will learn more and understand better. And also it'll be more fun, okay, more interesting. Now, what if you go in and you read something that someone wrote and you just type as a reply, hey, I really like the way you described that thing, in the lesson, or the way you described whatever it was you described, or the example you gave of whatever it was in the lesson, and that's all. If that's all you write, if you just compliment another student on what they have written or do what we might call small talk, that's great. Go ahead and do that. But it won't count for any points. You won't get any points on your grade just for doing that. Now you can do that, but then you need to add something of academic value. Okay? So if a student had asked a question, then your answer, if it's based on your study of the lesson, would be something of academic value. If you pose a question, maybe a student has suggested something and you want to know more, and so you ask more detail about that thing. That has academic value, okay? Or maybe you see that a student has defined a concept in their post, and you come in and you say, okay, that was a great, I like the way you defined that, and I'd like to offer an example of it. And maybe you give a real life example that matches the concept that they have defined. So that would be of academic value. So I think, hopefully you get the point here. Yes, it's okay to write things that don't have academic value, like compliments. I'm all for it. But if that's all you do, you won't earn any grade points. So you got to have things of academic value in the messages that you post to get full credit. Okay? And then there is the paper. And the paper is really going to be based on what we're learning in the lessons. So we're going to have a lesson where we talk about defining a phenomenon as a social problem. Not every phenomenon is a social problem. Not every phenomenon could be considered a social problem in sociological terms. So we're going to study what the criteria are for a phenomenon in society to be considered a social problem. Okay, so that's one thing you're going to do, is defining social problems. Another thing we're going to do is look at research on social problems and how to research, how to get accurate information about a problem or a topic, a social phenomenon. And you're going to be doing some of that library work to find information about a social problem. And one of the things you're going to look at is the scope of the problem. And by scope, I mean, how bad is it? You know, how damaging is it? Who is harmed by it? How many people are harmed by it? You know, to what extent is it a problem? Is it worse than it used to be? That kind of thing. And so you can find that information in research literature where researchers have done scientific studies of the problem in question. And then a third thing that you might find in literature, in the research literature, when you're looking at a social problem, is interventions. In other words, programs that have been designed to alleviate or prevent a particular social problem. And a lot of times in the research literature, you'll find evaluation research where researchers have gone in and done some scientific research to evaluate whether or not a program that's been designed to address a particular social problem is effective or not relative to the goals of that program. So those are three things: defining a problem, the scope of a problem, how bad it is, and interventions for a problem. So your paper, I'm going to ask you to pick a problem that interests you, a social problem, and then to find a few articles, and you probably could do it with just as little as 3 articles altogether, research journal articles from the library, where that talk about, that give accurate, valid, and reliable scientific information about the social problem. And then you're going to write about the definition of that problem, the scope of the problem, and interventions for the problem. Okay? It's just that simple. So it's really a short paper, but it has those 3 components. Okay. Now, and I'm going to help you. There's a lot of information in the course. There'll be a whole module dedicated to how to do that, how to find the literature that you will need, and what the outline should look like of your paper. All those details will be in the lesson. And finally, the final exam will be a multiple choice test, somewhere from 50 to 100 questions, usually multiple choice. And they will be similar to the ones that you had in the quizzes. They will be responsive to the lesson goals that you have been looking at. So one way to really know what to study, what's going to be on an exam, and even what's going to be on a quiz for that matter, is to look at the goals for the lesson and make it your study goal to achieve those goals, to learn whatever that goal says. The student will be able to do X, Y, and Z. Then, the student will be able to define social problems according to Weber's 4 criteria. Okay, that's the goal. So that there's going to be questions on the exam about those 4 criteria. You know that because that's a goal of the course. So whenever a professor or a teacher has a goal they want the student to learn, and then they give you lesson content that helps you learn that information, and then they give you some kind of assessment, a test or a paper or something like that, where they want you to, in order to pass that assessment, to pass the test questions, you have to have learned and achieved the goal. Then it's all lined up in a straight line, isn't it? The goal, the content, and the assessment. And that's called constructive alignment. But I try to practice constructive alignment so that you can know exactly what's going to be on the test, right? Because my goal is for you to learn that, so why not, right? So that's the best way for us. And what is your goal? Your goal, I hope that your goal is to learn something in this class that will change you as a person. In other words, When this class is over, I hope that you have skills and ability and insights and understanding, level of understanding that has grown and changed as a result of the things you've studied in this class and the exercises that you've done and even the tests that you've taken, so that you're a different person at the end of this semester than you are right now. If you continue down in the syllabus, it gives you a little more description of each of those items: the discussions, the quizzes, the research paper, and the final exam. And so there are 4 items, each one of them 25% of your grade, your semester grade. So the math is very easy on that, right? There's no provision for makeup of quizzes because you can take them as many times as you want. All right. So the only time that wouldn't apply would be if you got in an accident, went to the hospital, and you couldn't do the quiz or the assignment during the time you were supposed to do it, and you couldn't make the deadline because of something outside of your control. Then you need to talk to me, and let's plan a solution for that in a case-by-case basis. But otherwise, there's no makeup because you can take it as many times as you want. All right. Now the final exam you can only take twice. So you can take quizzes as many times as you like, lesson quizzes. The final exam, you'll get 2 attempts. And out of those 2 attempts, instead of it being the average, it'll be the highest. So if you go in and take the final exam and you make a 75 the first time, but then you go back and you take it again the second time and you make a 95, well, 95 then will be your grade. And we throw the 75 out, okay? We'll just give you the highest score out of the 2 attempts. All right. So then there's some other policy issues that the university wants you to know and that you may need to look at. Academic integrity is very important, especially when you're writing a paper. But it's very, very easy to maintain academic integrity, okay? It's very easy to be honest. It's very easy to do your own work and to tell the truth. It really is. Now, you might be thinking, well, sometimes students will use quotes or will paraphrase what they've read somewhere else and put that into their paper. That's okay. As so long as you cite where that came from, put the citation in the body of your paper, and then put the reference for it in your reference list that matches that citation. If you have a lot of references and paraphrasing and such in your paper and you cite it, all that tells me as the professor is that you read a lot of different stuff. You looked up a lot of stuff. You researched a lot of stuff, and that is praiseworthy. That's the kind of thing that gets you good grades, right? So it's good to include the work of others as long as you properly cite it. Now, the next thing in the syllabus is the course schedule. And as I said, you can click on that one button and just get the schedule by itself. The schedule covers, it looks like 2 pages, right? Page 7 and page 8 in the syllabus. And it's kind of your best friend. So if I were a student, I would print those 2 pages and have them in front of me, on a regular basis as you're studying and planning. I would take the dates I would put 2 things in my day planner or in my phone or my tablet or however you manage your life. And that would be, one would be the start date for each lesson. So if I'm looking at lesson 1 here, it's set to start on September 3rd. Now, some students say, well, can I go ahead and start working on it? Yes, you can. If it's up there and available to you, if I have made it visible to you, then go ahead and work on it. You're allowed to do that. There's a little caveat about that. I'll get right back to that. But so I put that start date. The other date that you want to put is every deadline. Make sure that you do that. And remember, I said don't wait until the deadline to do the thing that's that deadline. So if it's a quiz deadline, don't wait until this lesson 1 starts September 3rd. goes through September 8th, and the 8th is the deadline for the quiz for that lesson, which means that you will no longer be able to attempt the quiz after 11:59 p.m. on September 8th. Okay? Now, if you wait till September 8th to attempt it, you probably won't do as well as you would if you studied the lesson, say September 3rd. You put that down as a reminder to yourself to get busy on it. You go ahead and you read the lesson and start looking at the lesson, studying the lesson. Sometimes the lessons are short and you could finish them in one day. Sometimes it might take you a couple of days to absorb that, and then go ahead and make your attempts on the quiz, right? And you'll have opportunities to make subsequent attempts, and you may make numerous attempts by the time you reach September 8th, and you'll just do better, right? You'll make higher grades that way. And the discussion. So the discussion deadline, it shows as the day before, Saturday. So September 3rd, I would mark that in my calendar as to when to start, and I would do the reading that day. And then by September 4, if not the 3rd, but by September 4, I would, at the latest, I would post my first discussion. And then that gives you a number of days to post the replies to other people before the end of the lesson, the deadline for the discussion. So you can't really, so that's the only area that you can't work ahead. You could work ahead as far as you could go ahead and put your initial discussion post in there, but you're going to have to wait until other people in the class also put their initial post in the discussion before you can start replying to them and having a back and forth. Okay, so everyone needs to get in there by day 2 of a lesson and put their initial one so that everyone else can move on with the course, but in the lessons as it comes along. Then we have Thanksgiving break, and then finally, when we come back, the final exam. The way the final exam is going to work in the online class is this. Instead of you having to come on a certain day and time, all of you have different schedules. So I'm going to open the final exam saying I want to give you a window of time that's 4 or 5 days long at least, so that you can fit it into your schedule. Because you may have other classes in person that you have to go to a certain day and time. This way you don't have to do it the same day you're doing one of those. Now, after that, in the syllabus appendix A is the rubric for how I'm going to grade the discussion, so you can read that and know exactly how to make an A on the discussion. Then there's appendix B is some information about the paper. There's a rubric for how the paper will be graded. Now that rubric actually is in appendix C. So there's the rubric, and here's the criteria. There's 6 criteria that I'm going to look at to grade it, so you'll see exactly. And now I added a little thing at the end. Appendix D is a self-assessment and for discussions. So you have the official rubric for discussions, which was appendix A. Okay, this is what I'm using to grade your discussion. I'm going to basically check boxes, right? And your grade will be a combination of whatever boxes, maybe you get this first box checked on this criteria, maybe on the other you didn't do as well, you get this third box checked, and so on. Hopefully you get the first box checked on each one, right? And that would add up to 100. Okay, so that's how I'm actually going to grade it. But how can you look at your own discussion work and decide and feel secure that you're checking all the right boxes? Well, I made this little tool to help you with that. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 little criteria that you could evaluate. Now, it's not for me. I'm not going to use this, and you're not going to turn it into me, right? It's just for you to look at and grade yourself before you're done with any particular lesson. Because let's say you look at all the discussion let's say a lesson is a week long and you're now in like day 4 and you've already done some discussion in the lesson. And you go back and look at your participation in that discussion and ask yourself these questions. Ask yourself, does my discussion participation match this criteria? Were all the entries made before the deadline? Check. Okay, strongly agree? A, right? Did I post an initial discussion about the lesson content early in the week? Check. On a day or other days after that, subsequent to that, did I post replies to the questions and comments of other students? Check, check, right? Maybe if you only did one, then it's going to be kind of like somewhat agree, right? If you did 3 more, that's strongly agree. Okay. My messages were free of spelling and grammar errors. So, if I were you, I would type out your discussion message in a word processor before, and not just do it right into D2L. I mean, right into Canvas. I would do it, and then I would copy and paste could use the word processor to correct your spelling, grammar, and so on, and read over it again. Proofread is the word, right? Before you copy and paste it into the discussion online, so that you make sure that you don't have those. Now, it's not like that's the most important thing, is it? But it's important for your success in this world. So, but just make sure that's right. Treat the class as if you are a junior executive in a new company, and everything, these messages you're writing are notes and reports that you're writing for the president of the company. Use your college experience as practice for your professional life. Use that to test yourself, and if you look at it and you're not strongly agreeing with it all, then the deadline hasn't passed yet. Get in there and make some improvements. And I just put this little column over here like you would. So the idea would be that you make some notes to yourself about what I need to do to go improve my discussion before that deadline, before the professor grades them. Okay? All right, so that's the syllabus for our class. Okay. Have a great week. I'll see you online.